Okay, so we're live.
Okay. Did Gabe fill you in on my background at all?
No.
Because I'm a CPA.
Okay.
And I've been a
little
CPA
bit,
for
yeah, a little
forever.
bit.
And I used to work with the big firms, the international firms for a while. And I broke out on my own back in the 90s. And most of my clients come to me because they're tax motivated. They want to pay less in tax. But once you get all the tax problems solved, then they want to know how to grow their business. And most CPAs are stuck. They don't know what to do. So what I did was I developed a niche as a fractional CFO.
Okay.
And I work with businesses that have anywhere between 5 million and 20 million in revenue to help them increase the value of their business. And I do that by basically increasing their profit. Because any business in the long run will sell at some multiple of profit or cash flow,
Okay.
or some derivation of profit. So, I start here with profit, and because we're going to talk about customer retention in just a minute, but I just want to kind of give some background about why that's so important and why a fractional CFO would even be concerned about it. Because we're looking at profit and how to increase this, because ultimately we'll build value. But there's nothing that you can do directly to act on that number. You've either got to fiddle with your gross profit percentage, which basically means cut costs, and you can't shrink yourself to greatness. You can cut your cost to zero, but you're not going to have much of a business at the end of the day. So I focus on revenue. So my philosophy is don't spend less, make more. Okay. And the reason I say that is because there's a lot of revenue is multidimensional in this sense. It's comprised of existing customers times your retention ratio. Okay, gives you the number of customers that you retain.
Okay.
This is what we're talking about. This is what we'll be talking about today. But also included in revenue is the number of leads or inquiries you get times your conversion ratio is the number of new customers that you get. You sum those two up, and that gives you the total number of customers that you have. Multiply that by the average transaction value, which is like price that served, or it could be as easy as increasing the prices. And then you multiply that by your transaction frequency. Get them to come back more often. Now, I work with businesses that say, well, I can only get my customers to buy from me once a year. Well, don't look at getting them all to buy from you twice a year. Look at getting 20% of them to buy from you twice a year, and go from there. So those are the things that make up revenue. Now, what most business owners what do you think most business owners focus on? Where do they spend most of their dollars? Generating leads and inquiries. That's where they spend all their money, as opposed to increasing their conversion ratio and their retention ratio. In other words, they've got their retained customers, and they pretty much ignore them after a while, and then they end up going to their competitors. There's a Frederick, his name is Reichelt, wrote a book back in the early 90s, late 80s. Actually, it's a pretty good book. It's called The Loyalty Effect. And he says that a 5% increase in retention can equate to anywhere from 25% to 125% increase in profit. He's got a very eloquent proof in there, if you like, mathematics and linear algebra. In any event, excuse me. What I have found in working with clients is that, and I put it on the matrix, there are two things that customers experience and then when they deal with any business. One is the process that you take them through and their dealings with you. And the other is the outcome. In other words, the widget. Okay.
Right.
Now, your expectations could be satisfied, or sorry, they could be not satisfied here on this end of the spectrum. They can be satisfied, and they can be what I like to call dazzled. read that. On this end, their expectations could be not met, sorry. I always tend to forget to put the not in there because I want to focus on that. It can be met or value added. In other words, you exceeded their expectations. They're not paying you enough in their mind. Okay? Now, your customers fall somewhere in this matrix. Oops, sorry. Somewhere along here, okay? If they're not satisfied with the process or the outcome, I call those people gone. Okay? If they're satisfied and they're meh about your product, in other words, if you're not killing them, then they're looking, searching. If they're really happy, if they're at this end of the extreme here, or this end of the extreme here, or kind of in the middle, this is the meh, they're at risk. And the only time you're really going to they're really safe is when if they're really dazzled with what the service they're getting, within the processes that they're experiencing when they deal with you. And these guys are raving fans. And that's where you want everybody to be.
Right.
You want them to feel like they were getting more than they're paying for, and they just love working with you. So this is where you want to try to move everybody, particularly in today's environment with the web. It's really tough to do that because everything's so impersonal. Because there has to be some element of human touch in it, even if they never see you.
Right.
Because I got a good example. Ordered something for my dog the other day, and I opened up the box, and there's a handwritten note from whoever packed it. We're a family-owned business, and we're just really glad you ordered from us. And that was it. I'm going to definitely order from you again. That was kind of a nice touch. Plus, I was also pleased with the process too. The entire process. It came ahead of time, and my dog loves this stuff, whatever it is. But that's basically customer retention, or the importance of customer retention. Okay. Now, why do you lose customers? Why do you suppose we lose customers?
Any number of reasons.
Okay, give me one.
Competitors?
I would say dissatisfaction with some aspect of the transaction or the process.
They do studies on this, and they've done studies on this every year since World War II, and they get the same results. Drop notes. Usually when I ask that question, most people say price. Okay. Convenience. You get your haircut, you go 5 miles because you could get your haircut there for years. Somebody opens right across the street, Unless you were getting a really good haircut, you're probably going to go for the convenience. And another one that's kind of nebulous is this: somebody at the company has a relationship at a high level with a competitor. You got a landscaper client. This has a $50,000 a year client. It's a hospital. He did the landscaping and snow removal. Well, somebody came in and displaced the, what do you want to call him, the operations manager or whatever. He wanted to bring his landscaper that he worked with at the other hospital. Nothing he could do about it. You know? He just got to wait for that guy basically to get promoted out of his position and move someplace else. That's the only thing that you could do about it. And then there's kind of something I use as a catch-all, which is something you can't really, they don't lend themselves to the other categories. Then there's this last one, which is what I call perceived indifference. Which is what we're talking about. And these are basically the only reasons that you lose customers. I can remember when I was with Touchoise, now it's Deloitte Touche, an international firm. They did a study, late 80s, early 90s, right around the turn of the decade there. And they determined that if they had just kept the clients that they had in 1985 and not get any new clients, they would have grown 10% more than they had in the same period that they actually did. They just kept their clients. Now, back then that was Ozark. Remember Ozark Airlines? They lost Ozark Airlines. I mean, there's nothing you could do about that. They went out of business. I guess they were acquired by TWA.
Yeah.
Of course, TWA now.
Well,
But there's a breakdown for this. What do you figure these breakdown is in all these?
I have no idea.
Well,
Yeah,
this is what it comes to. Convenience, this is like 3%. This is what the study shows. For price, most people say price, they guess price. This is only 15%. This miscellaneous category here is like 5%, it's catch-all. This relationship category is 9%. And perceived indifference is the rest. Perceived indifference is all the rest.
there you go.
So you lose it's your own fault when you lose a customer, more often than not. Does that make sense?
mm-hmm.
Now, the other thing that I like to point out here is that of these 5 items I have up here, which of these are in your control? That's in your control, and that's definitely in your control. So, there's only about 15% of the business that you lose that's not your own fault.
Right.
So it comes down to dealing with that perceived indifference. You know what perceived indifference is? That's from the viewpoint. That's what your customer perceives.
Exactly.
They feel like you just don't care. It permeates that whole on the axis ahead process. It's everything that you do along there that's perceived indifference, or you fail on in your process of your service or product delivery. From the way you answer your phone. I mean, how many times do you call a business, particularly a smaller business, and they pick up the phone and they go, hello, you know, and they're rude, or one of the things that always irks me is when people screen their calls, and it's so obvious when they do so, because it's like, let me see if she's here, or let me see if he's here, and they get back on the phone and say, oh, he just stepped out. Bullshit, he just doesn't want to talk to me. You know, things like that. You know, if you've made a request or requested something, and, you know, they don't get back to you, they don't return your calls, you know, things like that. That's all perceived indifference. One of the things that I do is, you know, I found in analyzing my accounts receivable, you know, there were some of my best clients were taking me out 60 days. And I asked one of them, I said, why do you take me out 60 days? I work with you all the time. I know how much money you have. It's not like you can't pay me. He says, sometimes, John, the only time you call me is when I owe you money. So what I did was I started writing thank you notes to clients that paid me within 14 days. You don't do it all the time, but I try to get it once a year. So what happened was those clients that were already paying me quickly paid me faster, and the ones that weren't, of course, paid me faster. So I got my collection period under 30 days, just for doing something simple like that. So, how do you know? How many employees do you have?
None.
None. Okay.
No, I'm the one.
Okay. Well, I understand that. I'm the only one in my firm right now. Well, I work with agents, of course, on a contract basis, but in my firm, I'm the only one. I answer the phone, things of that nature. So, but when you look at from a CFO's point of view, that's why it's so important to retain clients. The other thing I tell my clients is don't do whatever you can to make sure that you don't have one customer that represents more than 10% of your revenue. The reason for that is, well, obvious, I would imagine, but it's because if you lose that client, you're really going to have to struggle to make it up. And somebody like you, somebody like me, we lose 10% of our revenue overnight. We're going to have some sleepless nights. The only real solution to that is to continue to get more clients and not lose the ones that you have. Now, I just posted something today on my blog on paying attention to your customers, and you got to be straight with them. You don't lie to them, things of that nature. But one of the things that we do that you might want to consider. Do you have big customers? Customers that spend a lot of money with you?
I do, yeah.
Basis? How many of those do you have?
Well, I'm on track for a record year for 2014
Good.
for my stock photography company. I will have 60. I will have had 60 unique licenses. Probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 of those are from one company. And then there are probably 2 or 3 more companies that are responsible for 2 or 3 each.
So you're getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But these are, my stock photography is, while it is stock photography, it's different than iStock. It's a very tightly curated, narrow niche collection. So I exist in a space that's between stock photography and between hiring a photographer to create something specially commissioned. So therefore, I'm able to charge more money than big stock photography companies. So it's more money than a stock license, but less money than hiring a photographer. So I'm this little outlier on the spectrum. And
photographers are expensive.
Yes, they are.
I had a client, a photographer. He photographed food.
Right.
For McDonald's and so forth.
There you go.
In restaurants to use on television and such. So yeah, they're expensive.
They are. And I charge a lot of money. And typically, a stock license for me is not a single image. It's usually a group of images. And I had, for instance, my biggest sale ever was one to Novartis, where they licensed 70 images in one batch. And that stands as my biggest record. And they licensed it for 1 year. And then at the end of the year, they relicensed it. And at the end of that term, they relicensed it. And finally, for them, the project for which they licensed it has come to an end. But it's been 5 years. So it's been, it's been fantastic for me. And then I got my foot in the door, and it was for one specific media placement. And then they said, well, we like this, and now it's associated with the brand. Now we want to use it for this. So that becomes a secondary license with its own terms and use and duration in media. So my prices are based on the duration of use, the placement in media, the size, the relative size of the image on the placement, and it comes without any exclusivity, meaning I can license it to anyone else, as I am not just the creator, but the owner of the copyright. Some licenses are, customer will pay a premium to have exclusivity, where that photograph will no longer be available to anyone else during the duration of that license. That's a rare event because it's a very expensive way to go.
Right.
It's still less expensive than commissioning a photographer to create something from scratch.
Right. Well, how do you know? How do you personally find out? How your customers feel about you and your business?
Well, a lot of times I don't. I hope that no news is good news.
At risk. Because usually when they're that category that was at risk, they're kind of mad. They're really happy in one area and kind of just satisfied in another. That's the risk that you run.
You're right. You're right. And I'll get an inquiry, and they'll say, we have a project pending. We're considering your work for this. We'll go through pricing. We'll go through the licensing usage, and we'll either come to an agreement or not. And then that deal is closed. And then that deal doesn't get addressed until it's close to the time for expiration. Then I become, then I have notifications, to your customer.
So as long as nobody's called them to complain, you figure you're okay.
Well, yeah, to a certain degree, yeah.
Do you ever use surveys? Because usually that's the big answer, surveys.
I haven't. I'm intrigued by that.
I don't recommend surveys. There's for a couple of reasons, but primarily because surveys, they don't work, and they don't work because people lie on surveys.
Yeah.
I
I don't want to take a survey.
You probably, last one you took, it was probably online, and you probably couldn't get what you wanted unless you completed the survey.
Yeah.
Because that's the way, to move to the next step, complete this short survey. But when you complete it, what do? You usually put, satisfied on everything. It'll give you a scale of 1
Right.
to 10 and 1 to 5. You pick the one in the middle, you answer them all that way. And they've got a box if there's anything else that we can do to improve your experience. Help us out and write something in this box. But you don't have to complete it to move on. So you just fill in one column and you move on, and you're done. Now, a lot of companies figure that those surveys are at least somewhat valid, because if they were really upset, they would have marked not satisfied, or they would have given you a 1 as opposed to a 5 or 7 or whatever. But what happens is that if you answer a 1, they require you to put it in Y before you move on to the next one. Or even if you put a 7,
Right.
they require you to say what's it going to take for us to get to a 10. So it just makes it a pain in the ass. Everybody lies on surveys. The other thing for you to do would be just to ask them.
I try to follow up after the deal is closed, after I've, just want to make sure everything was done to your satisfaction. If you can suggest any improvements, specifically website usability, because that's how people come to me.
Right.
That's how they get the work, how they select the work. But the thing about what I do and the need for my work is contingent on the relationship of the advertising agency with their client and whatever that particular creative campaign happens to be. And just because they used me for 2014 and they liked me, doesn't mean that I'm going to be right for whatever they're doing for 2015. The theme of the campaign will likely be different. I mean, ad agencies, they are into change. I mean, they have to justify their existence too with new work, new creative, new approaches.
Yeah, the issue that I've run across, just asking your client how they feel about you, how you're doing, is that most people are real friendly, they're really nice, and they have big hearts. Most people, because if they didn't, you probably wouldn't be working with them.
Yeah.
So as a result of that, they have a tendency to censor themselves. They won't tell you the whole truth. They'll tell you what they think you want to hear, particularly if they're just kind of man. You know, I'm happy, but I don't have time, blah blah blah. So they'll tend to lie to you. That's probably too strong a word.
Sugarcoat.
They'll probably sugarcoat it, exactly. So what I always recommend is a focus group. Now, I don't really like that term because it has kind of a negative connotation, I think. Plus, people think focus groups are expensive. They're not. The focus groups that I facilitate, I call them customer advisory boards. And you invite your best customers. I try to keep the group manageable, between 10 and 15. You bring them in, you sit them down, and the business owner leaves the room and comes back in 2 hours. You record the session, and then you listen to the recording. But this is the most powerful way that I've found to figure out what your customers really think about you. And I've also found that they want you to succeed. Just as much as they don't want to hurt your feelings, they want you to succeed. So they may lie to you, but they don't lie to me or whoever is going to be facilitating the focus group. The other thing that comes out of this is service innovations, new service lines, new product lines. Since I was consulting with a CPA firm a while back, and of all things, they brought up this payroll service. Some of them didn't even know they were getting it. This came up when we were listening to the recording. Long story short, we put together a web-enabled payroll service that he basically outsourced. He had one person that had to work on it 1 day a week. He had 400 clients that he was basically charging zero to. He's now charged. He now went in and he's charging them like $75 a month. So there's 400 clients, and last time I checked with him, his revenue had gone up by, or profit up, I should say, $300,000 from one focus group.
Wow.
That wasn't the only idea that came out of it. Another one I facilitated was a dry cleaners. The guy had 3 locations. And then there was one woman in the group. They're a lot of fun. There was one woman in the group who brought up the fact that she was annoyed sometimes that her clothing came back damaged, and that was one of the things that made her angry. And when we were playing it back for the owner, and we were listening to it. He's going, I know that woman. Those clothes were damaged when she brought him in, and he's getting all red in the face. We started to think about it. We kept it around for a little bit, and we talked to his team. And what we came up with was when people bring their clothing in, we set up a process whereby somebody goes through it. The trousers, the sweaters, the dresses, and everything. They find a flaw in it. They put them on the call list. So before they brought their clothes in at say 7, before noon they get a call. Say, hey, we noticed that your blue sweater has a hole in it, and we could fix it for you. It'll be $20. Would that be okay? Sure, go ahead, fix it. They said, we will. And you try to manage expectations. It may not look as good as it did new, but it's going to look better than it does now. So you turned what something that's a very annoyance for a customer into something that reduces that perceived indifference to zero.
Well, the existence of my business has come out of something similar as to when I was primarily earning my living as a commission photographer. So I mean that's how I made that move into stock photography, and then made the move again into being my own distribution channel. So I like
I'm just gonna sit down.
that, and of course I'm looking for the next. What's the next step? Because I don't know what that is. But I'm just, I'm open to that. I'm open to the next step. So you're right. My problem is I'm based here. My customers are scattered all over the U.S. Some in Canada. I had my first UK sale this year. I had a sale in Australia and one in Korea. But maybe my best new customer of the year is somebody that I actually met with on their premises last month in New York. And, that 20 minutes there was a revelation. To go from what was a very challenging project for them.
What time are you guys breaking up?
We got about 5 more minutes.
About 5 minutes.
Okay, so we're supposed to have it at 6.
Okay.
Yep.
We'll be out. We'll be out.
Huge challenge for them because it's a pharmaceutical use, which means that they've got FDA regulations to go through for their marketing materials.
Right.
And
Well, that must be fun.
a million last minute changes, which I was able to accommodate to put me in the dazzled category. I was on a shoot. We all assumed that this project was closed. 10 days later, they got notification that the FDA had not approved and was looking for a change. I was working in London. I was actually had been working. It was 8 o'clock at night. I was out to dinner with a friend of mine. Phone rings. It's the guys in New York. They're freaking out. It's Friday night. They need something now. And I said, I can deal with that in 45 minutes. Got it to them, got everything they needed. They needed a substitution image, and it needed to go out to another vendor who was producing. And it came in under their deadline, and they were ecstatic. And they all but threw me a party, and it was just the greatest feeling.
With the technology now, you can still do a focus group, that's done over the web. The only barrier that you get is time zones. Because if you've got business in Australia, it's kind of tough to do it.
Right.
Somebody in New York.
From the Midwest, because it's tomorrow there, or tomorrow morning
Right.
already. So.
Well, that's something for me to consider. I'll keep that in mind. Whether or not that's really right for me, I'm not entirely sure. And to be able to put more than one person together is fascinating, but I wonder if the venue might be something a little less overtly focused group, rather than maybe it could be more like, hey, I'm going to be in New York, and I've done business with you, and I've done business with so-and-so, maybe you're acquainted, maybe we can all get together for a coffee and a chat, or lunch and a chat.
Well, I get that objection a lot that business owners say, well, my customers aren't going to make the time. But the one thing I caution is because they want to send out 30 invitations, thinking maybe we'll get 10 people to come. And every time we've sent out 30 invitations, we get 30 yeses. I want to be great. Because like I said, people want you to succeed. Particularly if they're your best clients, that means they like you and they like what you do and how you do it. And it's in their best interest for you to do well.
And you feel that if are they participating in mass where one, I mean, let's imagine it's a remote focus group, and it's it's a Skype or a teleconference or something. Is everybody hearing what everybody else is saying?
Oh yeah. But there's no piling on.
Right.
One comment builds to the next to the next. And, you know, the way I do it, I've got 30 questions that I ask.
God, I gotta tell you,
For every
the
industry.
concept of it just scares the hell out of me.
Oh, it's very powerful. But I've got 30 questions that I take them through, each covering a different segment of the business, at least in the way I see things. And when people start to get off track, you know, that's why I'm a facilitator. I just bring them back on track. And, you know, we talk through the issue and move to the next one. And I try, you know, I'm pretty good at getting it done within 2 hours. Now, the thing about doing it online is that, you know, you don't have any cocktails or hors d'oeuvres or whatever.
Right.
You know, I've had some clients buy. We had one at one of the rooms up at Cheap Bucks.
Mhm.
We had another one at Ruth's Chris. You know, but it's worth. These guys say the clients say it's worth every penny because
Yep.
having everybody there talking about your business, we're giving you ideas about they should offer. Hey, why don't they do this and why don't they do that? And some of the stuff could be really off the wall, but your business is involves a lot of creativity, and most good ideas start with something ridiculous. Yeah. Let me give you one of my cards.
I'll give you mine.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I wish